We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Tuesday, September 23rd here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Brooke.
Hello, happy to be here.
To have you, and also Cheska's with us.
Yes, happy Tuesday, everyone.
Happy Tuesday. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So as we step into the second day of the work week, the spotlight is shifting to New York, where the United Nations has just kicked off the 80th General Assembly. It's a milestone gathering that brings together leaders from around the world, not only to mark 8 decades of global cooperation, but also to debate the most pressing issues. And this year's General Assembly is expected to set the tone for international priorities in the months ahead. So what's on the agenda this year, Brooke?
Okay, so let me give you an overview. On September 9th, the 80th session of the UN General Assembly was declared open at the UN headquarters in New York by Annalena Baerbock, the newly elected president of the General Assembly. This year's theme, Better Together, 80 Years and More for Peace, Development, and Human Rights, set a somber tone. In her opening remarks, Baerbock called it no ordinary session and asked a rather sobering question to all of us. 80 years, longer than the average human lifespan. Normally, this would be a moment to celebrate, but are we really in a mood for celebration? I think that's a good question because with long-running conflicts like what's going on in the Ukraine and the Middle East, these have been unresolved for quite a long time now. In addition to pressing environmental issues, the mood was more reflective than celebratory because I think it underscores just how much work remains ahead of us. I think we can recognize that 80 years is a great accomplishment while also looking to the future at the homework we still have to do.
I mean, there's, like you said, there's so much to be discussed. But is there one issue that you'd like to see discussed on the UN floor this year?
Well, I'm interested in the technological aspect. I think AI has been just expanding so rapidly, and I want to see how we're going to address it globally. I'm pretty interested in that.
And also, South Korea is expected to use the stage to highlight its positions on key global challenges. So what does South Korea's participation in this year's General Assembly look like?
So as of 23rd in New York, South Korea President Lee Jae-myung will attend the high-level meeting openings. And in his keynote address at the UN General Assembly, he will present the government's vision and policies on key global issues, including the Korean Peninsula and national security. Now, he's also expected to preside over an open debate of the United Nations Security Council in his capacity as its president.
So as you mentioned, there's a plethora of important issues that are on the table, from peace and security on the Korean Peninsula to climate action, sustainable development, and the digital economy, just to name a few. So let's take a look at the screen to learn more about what we're talking about today. The United Nations has played a crucial role for decades in maintaining global peace, promoting human rights, and addressing urgent challenges like climate change and economic inequality. And South Korea has also been an important part of this global effort, with many key moments in its modern history closely tied to UN initiatives and programs. Today on News Generation, we're going to take a closer look at what the UN actually does, explore how South Korea's history is connected to it, and highlight the role of South Korea and even K-pop stars in spreading the UN's message and values around the world. So as we just saw in the video, the UN General Assembly is marking its 80th year. From its founding in 1945 to today, the UN has stood as the only truly universal forum where nearly every country in the world comes together under one roof. Over the decades, it has witnessed historical speeches, landmark resolutions, and countless debates that have shaped the world that we live in now. And while the world has changed dramatically since its creation, the UN continues to serve as the stage where nations present their visions, voice their concerns, and at least in theory, work towards common solutions. So to start us off, Brooke, what exactly is the UN today, and how does this decades-old institution remain relevant in tackling the challenges of our time?
Big question. So the UN is an international organization that was initially created to prevent war and maintain peace. That is the simplest explanation. It was founded after World War II by the Allied nations with the aim of stopping future atrocities against humanity while also promoting global cooperation and peace. It officially came into existence on October 24th, 1945, and today it has 193 member states. Now, the UN is still relevant because it provides a unique global forum for nations to address shared challenges like war, climate change, poverty, and human rights, promoting peace, development, and justice through diplomacy, peacekeeping, and humanitarian aid, as well as technological issues like I mentioned earlier. And it is the only place where all countries can come together to cooperate on issues that are just too complex for any single nation to solve on their own.
So at its core, the UN was born out of the devastation of the World War II with the mission preventing such a tragedy from happening again. But decades later, that mission continues to be tested in new ways. So beyond its founding mission of preventing wars, what role does the UN play today when it comes to resolving conflicts and improving lives around the world, Cheska?
As Brooke mentioned, I think it is a neutral ground that is sort of provides a safe discussion place for a lot of countries to actually come together. But other than that, when real conflicts do happen, the UN Security Council drafts resolutions and submits important issues to the General Assembly. And then what happens is they establish dedicated bodies to actually tackle these issues. These include protecting human rights, organizing relief and volunteer efforts. And a lot of active, very UN involvement has led to some very visible and positive progress, including but not limited to tangible and very visible progress in child hunger, ending poverty, and addressing climate changes. So there has been some very visible progress made, but also I think one thing the United Nations actually does, it is a brand. So once it is attached to an issue, it is very, very likely that the issue will raise awareness. And I think that is also the power of the United Nations that has gained over the last 80 years as well.
That's a great point. So the UN's work goes far beyond diplomacy. It's about improving people's lives through health, education, and humanitarian relief. And even though many of us are familiar with the UN, there's still a lot that we don't know about its work and history. So to test our knowledge and to learn something new today, we put together a fun OX quiz for the panelists here on the history of South Korea and the UN. So I'm going to ask our panelists 3 questions, and they'll each give their answers before we reveal the correct one. So let's see who knows the most. And maybe we'll learn a few things along the way. So question 1, true or false? South Korea joined the United Nations before North Korea. Do you want to reveal your answers for this?
I know this one.
So the answer is actually false.
Yes!
Do you want to explain why?
So honest confession, I actually did study. Sorry, Brooke. I cheated just a little bit. But as a Korean, I must know this. So apparently, back in 1948, South Korea was recognized as the only legitimate government in the United Nations. But the application the following year was denied by the opposition from the Soviet Union. But the thing is that opposition lasted for over 40 years, and only in 1991, South Korea was admitted to the United Nations membership, which comes after North Korea. Surprise.
Very interesting. Kind of unexpected.
Learning something new.
I know. I did too, but it's very interesting, yes.
So question 2, true or false? The number of South Koreans working in the UN agencies is increasing. What are your answers for this?
I mean, I want it to be an O, but I'm really not sure.
You're not really sure about this?
I think yes.
So Brooke, you got this right. Can you explain this?
Yeah, so I did actually know this even as a foreigner, and I think it's because of just the knowledge that Korea shifted from an aid recipient to a donor nation. So I think it logically follows that more Koreans would be working in the UN now. I want to highlight some notable figures that include former Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and the first female former Foreign Minister of South Korea, Kang Kyung-hwa. Other Korean experts are increasingly present in areas like climate change negotiations, disarmament, and international law. And I think that reflects the fact that even though Korea is quite a small country in terms of its size, it has increasing influence and a much broader role in global governance today than it has in the past.
It's always nice to see Korea represented in the global stage.
Yeah, it really
And also, last but not least, so the question 3. So true or false?
Yes.
International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies was proposed by South Korea at the UN. So what are your answers for this? So you say true.
I think yes,
Both
because
true.
Korea really cares about the air.
The sky.
They always talk about, even applications will tell you how clean the air is. So I think
that's
this is
very
true.
good.
ESG goals are a big deal for companies. So Cheska, you guys both got this right. Cheska, do you want to maybe explain the answer?
Absolutely, because as a Korean, I'm quite proud to talk about this. So back in 2019, Korea, the Blue Sky was adopted and proposed by Korea. It was co-sponsored by 22 other countries, but it's actually the very first United Nations commemorative day that was led by South Korea. So it is a huge pride for us, but also comes with huge responsibility. So it is very exciting, but I also think there needs to be a lot of work done, especially with climate changes and global warming. But I do hope to see a more clear sky and definitely bluer sky.
Yes, to see those too. And it happened quite recently. September 7th is the UN's International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies. It's a day, like you said, to propose by South Korea to spotlight the global fight against air pollution. So we're going to talk more about this topic. And to learn more, we're going to speak with someone who actually leads the board of directors for a branch of the UN Youth. And that conversation will take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out Channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Vasil, who leads the board of directors for UN Youth Australia. So hi, Vasil. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello.
Hello, or should I say 안녕하세요? Thank you so much for having me.
We're honored to have you on the show. So what kind of activities are you and UN Youth currently involved in at the UN?
So UN Youth Australia is one of the largest youth-led organizations in Australia, and we focus on empowering young people to engage with global issues and work to increase awareness of the United Nations among young people. In Australia, we run a national model United Nations competition, youth conferences, and also international educational tours as well. Our flagship program, though, is the Australian Youth Representative to the United Nations. So for 26 years, we have worked with the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs to appoint one young person to represent youth voices at the United Nations General Assembly. So what is happening right now? The representative conducts a national consultation with young people to understand what the key issues are for Australian young people. In 2025, we've heard from 5,000 young people across the country. Those insights are presented at a speech at the UN General Assembly in their third committee, which focuses on social and humanitarian issues, ensuring young voices are heard on the world stage. So in short, our motto is young people driving meaningful change because we really believe in that.
Wow, it's really fantastic to hear about all the amazing work that you're doing. My question for you is, why do you think youth participation in the UN is so important?
So we all experience so many global problems at the same time, and they're very interconnected. Young people tend to be affected in a very unique way, but are often left out of the solutions because we're not in political roles. We don't tend to be in these spaces. So just being at the United Nations is really important for young people to be able to share their own unique view on how these challenges affect them. Honestly, the UN still feels pretty out of reach for most young people like myself. I felt that myself last year when I was at the General Assembly for 2 weeks. Even as a full diplomat, there were times where I wanted to be involved, but I was so confused by how complex the UN system is that I wasn't able to. So that's often how young people feel. And so programs like the Youth Delegate Program and programs that other UN agencies are working on at the moment are big steps in the right direction.
I think you're the very best person to talk about this because you have a lot of first-hand experience. But what do young people really want from the United Nations?
So this changes all the time because young people are not just one big group with the same ideas. But going back to my statement from last year, I called on three main things. The first thing was proactive global collaboration, which is what the United Nations was created for. We want to see countries working together to tackle the big challenges of the world. And it is important to keep building on summits and initiatives that the UN does year on year and make it clear to us that they actually make a difference. Making the UN more visible to young people is also really important. A lot of us don't know what the UN does. We don't really know what the Sustainable Development Goals are, or even the 2030 agenda, which is approaching. So the UN work needs to be easier for young people to find, understand, and engage with. And that's what we really want. But finally, as well, recognizing that young people are able to make change as well. Young people across the world, in Australia and I'm sure in South Korea, are already doing great work, are creating their own initiatives. Our organization is created fully by young people. So recognizing the importance of those initiatives and incorporating them into the work of the United Nations and the work of politicians is our best way of tackling some of our biggest challenges of now and in the future as well.
So I actually did model MUN when I was in high school, so I understand like how in the beginning it might kind of seem difficult to understand the system. So I mean, thank you so much for highlighting the importance of youths and the UN as well.
No, thank you. And yes, if I can leave you with one word, it's that our future depends on the future generations trusting that us and the UN can make a difference. So let's together work towards that.
I agree.
Really great.
Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us
you.
today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we just talked to someone who leads the board of directors for UN Youth, and they share some valuable insights into how young people are shaping conversations at the United Nations. So from the activities they're leading today to why youth participation matters, to what young people around the world hope to see from the UN, it's clear that the next generation aren't just watching from the sidelines, they're actively pushing for change. And speaking of voices that resonate with younger generations, the messages delivered by K-pop stars through the UN have also garnered a lot of attention, haven't they, Brooke?
Yes, and what a wonderful interview. I think that the next group I'm going to talk about would very much agree with everything that you said. K-pop supergroup BTS is who I'm talking about. They have addressed the UN General Assembly multiple times through their Love Myself partnership with UNICEF, which supports efforts to end violence against children and promotes kindness and safety both online and offline, which is just so important in this day and age. In 2018, RM spoke at the launch of UNICEF's Generation Unlimited, sharing his own struggles very earnestly and urging young people worldwide to find and use their voices. Then in 2020, during the 75th UNGA, the group delivered a virtual address about life under the COVID-19 pandemic, speaking very frankly about isolation and uncertainty, while also offering a message of hope and resilience. Life goes on. Let's live on. Then again, in September 2021, BTS spoke again at the 76th United Nations General Assembly as the Republic of Korea's special presidential envoys for future generations and culture, delivering a speech encouraging progress on sustainable development goals. Our interviewee mentioned that not a lot of young people know what those are, so I think it's so important to talk about that. And I want to leave you with a positive quote that RM said during his speech in 2018. No matter who you are, where you're from, your skin color, your gender identity, just speak yourself. And what an inspiring piece of advice from a young person, right?
BTS definitely made an impression at the UN, but there are other K-pop stars that also did something at the UN?
Yes, and I think K-pop artists becoming sort of a leader in youth movement is also very positive. So a very popular girl group, Blackpink, is also on the lead. They served as an ambassador at the 2021 Nations Climate Change Conference, where they raised global awareness about the seriousness of climate change, an effort that earned them the Order of the British Empire. And also, I actually found this out while researching, the boy group 17 was also actually appointed as the Goodwill Ambassador for UNESCO. So there's a lot of K-pop stars that are taking lead on promoting and raising awareness for a lot of the global issues, which, as our interviewer mentioned, I think is really important because it is really up to the next generation, isn't it? Yeah.
Right. So it's not just BTS, other K-pop groups like Blackpink and 17 are also using their global influence to amplify UN messages on climate and education. That really shows how deeply young people connect with these issues. And to get a broader perspective, we reached out to our viewers on the Arirang News YouTube channel and asked, as of 2025, what is the most urgent global issue for the UN and the world? So war was identified as the most pressing issue, chosen by 55% of respondents. This is followed by poverty and hunger at 25%, while 14% pointed to the climate crisis as the most urgent challenge. The remaining 6% highlighted other concerns, highlighting the wide range of global issues people are currently paying attention to. So these numbers show just how much conflict still dominates global concerns, but they also remind us that issues like poverty, hunger, and climate change remain urgent priorities for millions around the world. So to close off today's discussion, as the UN marks 80 years, what do you think will be the UN's most critical role as it looks to the future, Brooke?
Well, I think looking ahead, the top jobs for the UN are clear. They need to prevent and de-escalate wars. As our poll showed, that seems to be a very important issue in people's minds. Protecting civilians is important. They also need to unlock financing so that countries can actually deliver these basics that should be a human right, like education, healthcare, and clean energy. They need to turn climate pledges into real support, real action, and set practical guardrails for fast-moving technology like AI, so it doesn't go off the rails, right? Technology is amazing. It's wondrous to watch it grow, but we also need to keep an eye on it, right? And I think the UN80 initiative aims to tie all of these issues together and streamline how the UN works. They're also trying to rebuild trust in multilateralism so that the UN system can work the way it's intended and deliver on its promises despite tight budgets and rising geopolitical friction. So a lot left to do, a lot to cover. I don't envy them. They've got a lot to do. I also want to say, like our Vasil said, our interviewee, that I think they need to make it easier and more accessible for young people so that they can feel like they're a part of things too.
Yeah.
So as a young person, if you could direct UN funding to one area, is it one area that you
gosh.
Oh, wow. That's a great question.
That's tough. Honestly, for me, I would say ending violence against children. I think that's something that is just, it's very near and dear to my heart, and I want to protect children as much as possible.
Absolutely.
So that's where I would put all of my funds if I could.
And I would put my money in there too as well.
What about you, Cheska? What are your thoughts?
Everything Brooke said, but I also think I really want to be optimistic, but as technology advances and there are so many complications that are happening in the world, I do feel that global conflicts will continue and in many, many different forms, and even forms that we might not have expected in present time. In that sense, I think United Nations has to take the lead in providing a very safe and neutral ground for all countries to actually come together, sit down and sort the issue out, because once these conflicts do happen, the number one way to solve it is actually open communication. And a lot of countries, because of their sovereign issues and national pride, sometimes it is very, very difficult to have an open and honest conversation. And as of now, in the world, United Nations is probably the only place that can provide that kind of safety and boundary. So I do hope they take on a very active role in initiating these discussions when conflicts do happen.
Agreed.
Right. So I look forward to see what's going to come out of this week's UN.
There's a lot going on.
So 80 years may sound like a long time, but for the UN, the work is far from over. So if anything, the challenges ahead show just how much the world still needs this global forum. And while the road ahead is complex, the UN's continued ability to bring nations together, give voice to vulnerable, and push for collective solutions is a reminder that progress, while it may seem slow at times, is still possible when the world works together. And this brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation, but we'll be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Create Time with more stories and conversations. A big thanks to Brooke.
Thank you for having me.
For coming in. Also, Cheska.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you have the best day. We are
News Generation.